coined the term artificial intelligence? All right, so for this first question, the correct answer is John McCarthy. So Alan Turing was the father of computer science, as many of us know. But actually, in August 1955, John McCarthy proposed a summer research study at Dartmouth.
So why is there so much relevance to NLP AI right now?
Basically, trying to deliver on an ambitious vision, which is to create economic opportunity for every member across the global workforce. Medium through which people are applying to jobs or engaging our website is mostly textual. And so we have to invest in understanding our members and their needs to a very, very fine precision so that we can give them delightful experiences. For example, if someone in the US is a software programmer, but we might, if we were to recommend a TV programmer's job or something like that, kind of like the emotional impact and also just the trust that that person would have in LinkedIn and in our systems is severely impacted.
It's a bit like when you're going to the doctor and you want your diagnosis with this large-scale AI. What you can do is you can consult millions of doctors at once. But the real question is, what do you do with this knowledge and how do you use it? You need a product, you need a framework, you need a mechanism that will drive all the functionalities that you want to offer. Like, for example, you can have ILVS. You can have a mechanism that basically figures out the probability of one word in one language being is a translation of another in another language.
Let's dig into what we're talking about in terms of that impact, and let's find out what is the difference first between NLP and localization and translation world. We got a glimpse into those stochastic parrots.
I think, mostly everybody's very familiar and comes from different backgrounds in the localization world. And we know that from the trajectory and sort of evolution in localization, it's always been, technology was always a very large component. It kind of created an opportunity for people to not think first about commercialization, but think kind of first about how human thought is kind of generated and how that's propagated in language specifically, because language is intimately connected with thoughts. AI kind of creates a number of different drivers that go against that grain and really refocus us on our humanity, our culture, our history, and preserving those things in a way that localization might not be able to.
Jorge, just moving the ball a little bit to you and NLP models. Can you tell us what are NLP models? What are the problems they solve and the associated challenges with those?
AI sometimes is, too much of a tool that humans are, exploiting by training these models, but it should be more of a tool for humans. Most of the research on language models are still being done in English, right? When, I think I was looking at the data and at least 75% of the people in the world don't speak English, and there's almost 7,000 languages in the world. The second is that a lot of these models learn from the internet data, right? Like wide available data. And there's a lot of bias in that, as Jane was mentioning before. And the third thing I think is just involving, more type of humans and, diverse people into how these systems are built, so that, they can be audited, they can be transparent, and it's not just letting the AI do, whatever the AI is going to do, but just, being able to control it as well. So if they go with the, traditional approach in AI, they basically will have to label data and train a model for each of those issues, right? For 100 or 200 categories. And maybe, those issues may change in 3 months, right? Especially if it's a growing company.
Yeah, let's bring Omar into this discussion. Omar, do you follow a similar approach at LinkedIn? What are some of the use cases?
We are looking at the type of problem we're trying to solve. Is it a recommendation problem? Is it a problem where we're just trying to create a standardized data about a person, and then look at the data itself, the training data, to figure out how much will we have to create contextual understanding to drive good results. I think an interesting problem that comes up in this translation versus localization tends to be a one-to-one exercise. People will give you a series of text which they want you to be able to display or express in another language. However, certain languages, when you localize, it's not really a one-to-one mapping. And what we've noticed is, when we have enough data about people who work in a certain job title or in a certain industry, you can use mathematical vectors to basically create representations of the text that they're putting in, so that we can find similarities in other languages. It starts with building blocks. You have to first compute that vector for a word, which are, and then you do that for a bunch of words, which we call tokens. You create a space, and then you try to do that for another language, start to overlay. And so, then you're able to scale across many, many different languages.
Thank you, Omar. And Rafael, we're talking about vector space there. You've done some work in this area, the space, excuse the pun. Can you explain it simply from your perspective and talk about the use cases?
So basically, the concept of vector space is to represent a word as a series of numbers, to simply compute the probability that one point represented by 300 numbers is close or far away from another point represented by another 300 numbers, because that's training with a lot of data. That's true. Yeah, so you do need a lot of data to produce a vector space, and in order to produce it, you actually design a neural network. You make it do some tasks on the data, but you trick it. You don't really get the output of the neural network, you just get the insight. And then the similarity reflects the actual contextual similarity of words. So what you have is a very simple mathematical function. You can, for example, perform word alignment. When you have a source sentence and its target translation, you can figure out which word of the translation is the exact translation of which word in the source.
Moving on, Konstantin, you had a question I saw.
What are the 3 NLP use cases this year that impressed you? Something specific, something practical. I'm kind of leading up to the question, where is the money? And so I want to see where is the next million is going to be made.
One that definitely comes to mind is just the importance of recognizing as NLP practitioners the biases which are occurring in our recommendations.
I think there's a huge opportunity of structuring for each of the use cases, whereas it's a PDF, a call, an email, and I think there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to exploit those use cases. We've seen a few, right? Like recently, Gong.io, for instance, in the call center space, or others that have been growing a lot during the pandemic as well.